the perception is that as it were, aside from, let's say that this is the center of the political axis, and I'm going to have to do this for you, but okay, that's the right. The presumption is that it's just a cliff. Like, if you start by saying, I don't know, I think people should pay smaller taxes or whatever, right, you're there. And you've just gone like that, and then it's Nazism.
Right. Yeah.
And here's the really weird thing that is because all of this, look, all of this is just a footnote still to the 20th century, and we're still trying to work out what happened and why, and we don't know. And in the history books, the period we're living in will be the post-Holocaust, post-World War II, post-Gulag world, when they were still trying to sort out what happened behind the crime scene tape. Okay. So on the left, there's a very interesting thing, which is that you can go pretty much all the way like this. Mm-hmm. And first of all, there's not a very wide recognition that you had the Gulag. There's not very much known about that. People don't read Solzhenitsyn, they don't read it. So you can go pretty happily.
If you go too far left, you just hit the vegans. But there's actually the Gulag.
You might be like radical in your fairness. Okay. Yeah. So the problem here is not just they don't know what happened on that side, but it's worse than that. There was a young girl, a commentator on the TV in London a couple of mornings ago arguing about Trump and so on, as a usual, not very enlightening discussion. She's arguing with Piers Morgan, and she says, you keep on saying I'm some supporter of Barack Obama. I mean, I'm a communist. She said, I'm literally a communist. Right. And thought, if this girl had said, you should be more careful. I'm literally a fascist, Yeah. Yeah. By the way, edit that one carefully on that. Yeah. No, I'm alive to YouTube.
That would be the New York Times headline.
Yeah, exactly. Literal fascist admits. But if this guy, everyone is busy searching around. Like in Canada, one of the big discussion forums, the Human Rights Commissions found that there were 11 people on this neo-Nazi forum, and it turned out half of them were working for the Canadian government trying to find neo-Nazis. Right. The Canadian government constituted 50% of the neo-Nazis in Canada. So they're scurrying around looking for the Nazis like this, and on the other side, it's like mainstream on the television, yeah, I'm a communist, I'd love to go through all that again.
Well, okay, so here's another problem. This is a really interesting problem. Okay, so you brought out two things, and one is no one knows about what happened in Maoist China or what happened in the Soviet Union, which is absolutely appalling because we should all know that. And so there's obviously a cliff on the left side. Now, I would say actually there is the possibility that as you move farther out on each end of the political spectrum, the rate at which you deteriorate accelerates. So it's not linear. I think that's possible. But having said that, that's also the case on the left. Now, one of the things we could say is, well, those idiot leftists should get their house in order because they won't differentiate themselves from their radical brethren. Okay, so now we might ask, well, why? We might ask two things. Why? And whose problem is that exactly? Okay, so the first issue of why is, well, people who are left-leaning have a hard time drawing boundaries. That's what makes them left-leaning. And I mean this technically, because left-leaning people are high in openness to experience, which is a creativity trait. So they like information flow, and they don't like borders between things. And they tend to be low in orderliness, so disorder doesn't disgust and upset them. Okay, so they can't draw boundaries, and that's why they're on the left. But boundaries have their problems, so there's some utility in people who don't like them. Okay, but the second problem is, and this isn't a problem that's only germane to the left, it's the problem of the damn 20th century. It's like, okay, when does the left go too far? Right. And the answer is, nobody knows. Like, with the right-wingers, you can tell, man. It's like, they make a claim of ethnic or racial superiority. It's like, box, Nazi. Right, and then you can see that this happens because even back in the 70s, when William F. Buckley was sort of the leading conservative, he put a box around the Ku Klux Klan and the John Birch types, and he said, I'm not you. But none of that's happening on the left. Okay, why? Well, they say, well, we stand for diversity. It's like, well, everyone likes diversity. And well, what about inclusivity? Damn right, man, let's include some people. Well, what about equality? That'd be good, let's have some equality. It's like, okay, well, how much equality exactly? Well, then it's gradations, right? Well, equality of opportunity? Damn straight. Equality of outcome? Sounds good. How about no? Under no circumstances whatsoever. But, you know, I can't... Look, but here's the problem, man. You get somebody saying race or ethnicity group member X is detestable because of their group identity, and you think evil Nazi, but then you see someone say, well, I just wish that everybody could have an equal outcome. And what are you going to do? Are you going to punch them? That's what you're supposed to do with Nazis. No, you're not. You're going to think, oh, that's a pretty nice person. And it's like, just because you're nice doesn't mean you're good. And just because you stand for equality of outcome doesn't mean... Right, but the thing is, it's a complex technical problem, right? Because it looks like you need a multivariate equation to define pathology on the left. It's like, well, if you believe this, and this, and this, and too disproportionately, then we have to put a box around you. But it's not like someone wears a symbol on their damn shirt or tattooed onto their face that enables you to identify them. So we have a real structural problem here. We don't know how to box in pathology on the left. Yeah, no one knows, including the moderate leftists, but none of us know.
An additional problem is that many of these issues may not have a solution that we can happily live with, right? So let's sharpen this up, and this is more in the interest of steelmanning our critics. You take a problem like immigration. Right now, the intuition that's driving the left, I mean, let's take the extreme case of an open borders ethic. You know, but borders are illegitimate. Borders are just in principle a sign of selfishness and xenophobia and unearned privilege. Right? None of us can take credit for the fact that we were born into the societies we're born into. And yet we have all of the advantages of having been born there. And so it is with all of you. I mean, none of us are currently living through the civil war in Syria now. And that's a good thing for all of us. And so the concern here is that the moment you say, well, immigration is potentially a problem, right? We can't just throw open the borders to all of humanity, because what would happen? What would happen is people would continue to cross those borders until the level of well-being in the developed world diminished so much that there was no reason to cross the borders anymore, right? I mean, it would be just like some principle of osmosis, right? So
okay, so it's even worse than that. So,
but the concern is that this is totally, ethically speaking, this is a totally illegitimate situation. And to shine a bright enough light on any particular story in Syria, say, I mean, you give me the right family with children, and I learn enough about them and their plight, and I recognize within 30 seconds that if I were them, I would be desperate to get to Dublin or New York or San Francisco or anywhere but Syria, right? And it seems like a completely, it seems evil to in any way perpetuate this lottery, where you pulled a bad ticket, and sorry, this defines the rest of your life and the lives of your children, and there is no bright line where any of us, well-meaning people, wherever we are on the political spectrum or wherever we are in any other question, there's no bright line where we can say, aha, that's the solution that we know is ethical, that we know we can defend against all comers, and it can survive every test of narrative. I mean, this goes straight to the power of stories. You tell people a compelling enough story about one little girl, and it changes policy. I mean, isn't that what happened to Angela Merkel? I mean, she just was faced with one denied refugee, and all of a sudden the policy for Europe changed.